So I opened them up partially. I was met with, from good people, good people that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person.
So Joe Rogan just got Trump to admit something explosive about the JFK files, that living government officials blocked their release. We're about to hear Trump confess that only half the files have been released and reveal why the deep state keeps blocking transparency. This is massive.
There's a Martin Luther King file, too, by the way, that they'd like to see. I don't know if you know, but there is that. But JFK in particular. So they call me, a lot of good people call me, people that that you would find reasonable people. And they asked me not to do it. So I said, well, we'll close it for another time. But if I win, I'm going to open them up.
The Martin Luther King file revelation is stunning. We're talking about coordinated suppression across multiple assassinations. These aren't random bureaucrats. These are what he calls reasonable people, systematically blocking transparency for 60 years running.
Well, when they're living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living.
Living people that formerly work for the government.
For the government, and living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open.
Think about what he just admitted. Living people connected to the JFK assassination are still alive and still powerful enough to block disclosure. We're talking about operatives from 1963 who are now in their 80s or 90s, still protecting secrets.
But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure, I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as
I've had a couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very compelling with video evidence, radar evidence. Ryan Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange.
Military pilots describing objects going 4 times faster than F-22s. That's over 6,000 miles per hour. These aren't conspiracy theorists. These are trained observers whose job is identifying aircraft. The credibility factor here completely changes the UFO conversation.
Solid, beautiful people. They said, sir, there's something there.
There's something there.
Said it, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of them.
They're not conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah.
When Trump says you'd want these pilots as sons-in-law, he's emphasizing their character. These are career military officers with everything to lose by making false claims. Their testimony convinced a sitting president. That's unprecedented validation.
But they say I lost, Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over, that's spread over this period. So 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop. They said it was created by Russia. Russia. It was the Russia hoax. The Russia hoax was a big hoax. It was all a big hoax. So
well, that's clear. That's one example. But that is a good example.
That's a big example. They say it made a 17-point difference.
51 intelligence officials coordinated to lie about Hunter's laptop weeks before the election. The New York Post story was suppressed across social media. This wasn't incompetence. It was election interference by the intelligence community using fabricated Russian disinformation claims.
In many cases, they didn't get it.
What things?
Anything.
Legislative approval,
like for extensions of the voting, for voting earlier, for this,
right.
All different things. By law, they had to get legislative approvals. You don't have to go any further than that. If you take a look at Wisconsin, they virtually admitted that the election was rigged, robbed, and stolen. They wouldn't give access in certain areas to The ballots, because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. We could go into this stuff.
Article 2 of the Constitution gives state legislatures exclusive power over election procedures. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia all changed voting rules through executive action, bypassing their own legislatures. That's constitutionally invalid, regardless of who benefited.
The one mistake, because I had a lot of success, great economy, great everything. Everything was great. The military, we rebuilt it, biggest tax cuts in history, all this stuff. We had a great presidency. 3 Supreme Court justices. Most people get none. You pick them young. This way they're there for 50 years, right? So, even if a president is there for 8 years, oftentimes they never have a chance. I had 3. It was sort of the luck of the draw. But I will say that it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or...
This connects directly to the JFK files. The same establishment figures who blocked transparency also sabotaged his personnel choices. Pompeo, Kelly, Bolton, all deep state operatives who prevented real reform while protecting the classification system.
You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But, he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? The good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So
John Kelly ran Department of Homeland Security, then became Chief of Staff. John Bolton was Bush's UN ambassador, then National Security Advisor. Both are classic neoconservatives who've spent decades protecting institutional secrecy and pushing endless wars.
He's a nut job. And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us. He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people. And it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe
Bolton co-wrote the Project for New American Century papers that led to Iraq. These people control the classification system that's hiding the JFK files. They're the institutional continuity that spans from Kennedy's assassination to Trump's presidency.
And I say it to people, we have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with the enemy from within. And it drives them crazy when I use that term. But we have an enemy from within. We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. When you look at what's happening at our border, Joe, when you have people coming in that when other countries are allowed to empty their prisons into our country with murderers, we had 13,099 murderers dropped in our country over the last 3 years.
And 15,000 rapists convicted.
Rapists,
yeah,
drug dealers, drug lords.
And that's just the ones that have been accounted for.
Correct. People from mental institutions.
What do you think the strategy is?
Hundreds.
13,000 murderers released into America isn't incompetence. It's deliberate policy. The same enemy from within that covered up JFK's assassination now floods the border with criminals. It's systematic destruction using government power.
Can deal with all of it. Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
How would you have stopped it?
Automatic, 2 things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. I used to talk to him all the time. You're not going in. I can't tell you what I told him because I think it would be inappropriate, but someday he'll tell you. But he would have never gone in. But you know why else he wouldn't have gone in? Oil prices at $40 a barrel wouldn't have allowed him, wouldn't have given him the money to prosecute that war, wouldn't have given him the money. I said it with I was with President Xi. I said it was almost the same conversation. With Vladimir, it was Moscow. With President Xi, it was Beijing. It was almost the exact same conversation. I said, don't do it. He would have never done it. The day I left, they flew 28 bombers over the middle of Taiwan. 28 bombers. And it's the apple of his eye, and the same thing with Russia.
Strong deterrence kept both Russia and China in check. Now we have proxy war with Russia through Ukraine, and China flying bombers over Taiwan. The current administration's weakness has created exactly the conflicts Trump prevented through strength.
That's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
We should go to paper ballots. You know, France did. They went to mail-in voting, and it was all messed up.
What can
you know
be
the
done?
amazing thing with the machines? So we have the machines. They cost 10 times more. Paper ballot would cost 8%. And they make paper ballots, they're all watermarked and everything else. They're very sophisticated. But if you take a look, paper ballots, 8% the cost, and you're done by 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Now we have these sophisticated machine. It goes up to heaven. It goes all over the place and down and around. And they say, we'll need 2 weeks to figure out who the hell won the election.
Do you think that's by design?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very crooked.
Elon Musk revolutionized electric vehicles and space travel. His technical credibility on voting machines is unquestionable. Paper ballots cost 1/10 as much and provide results the same night. Electronic systems create deliberate complexity that enables manipulation.
And I walk in, and they know me. They say, Mr. President, could I see your identification? Yes, boom, here's this, here's that, everything. And then you sit and they watch you sign, and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot,
Right.
it has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left, and it's so bad. The one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong commission. It was no mail-in ballots. And we're the only one that does elections this way anymore.
Jimmy Carter's commission included Republican Scoop Jackson. This was bipartisan consensus that mail-in voting enables fraud. In-person voting requires ID, signature verification, and real-time monitoring. Mail-in ballots go through multiple hands with zero chain of custody.